I often get asked which format should I use for my PhD. In other words, how should I structure the content of my PhD? Let's dive in and I'll give you a few options to consider. So there are different ways to structure the contents of your PhD, and it's essential that you discuss the information that I'm going to share in this video with your supervisor, and together you can decide what is the best way to go forward. So the information that I'm going to share in this video is based on the University of the Witwatersrand's postgraduate information booklet. Now, the University of the Witwatersrand is situated in Johannesburg, South Africa, and is ranked among the top 1.3% of universities in the world. These formats are based on internationally accepted formats, and they are the block format, the divided block format, and the integrated format. So the general structure of your thesis remains very much the same, irrespective of the format that you're using. You'll have your title page, declaration, dedication, and then you'll have your presentations and publications from the study, which also can include your statement of authorship, but more on that later in this video. Then you have your abstract, acknowledgement, your table of contents, list of figures, list of tables, and in another video on the Research Masterminds YouTube channel, you can find more guidance on how to set these up. And then you have your list of abbreviations, the body of the thesis, and that is where you choose your format 1, 2, or 3. You have your references, which is dependent on the format, whether you're going to have one large reference list at the end of the document or multiple reference lists at the end of each chapter or section. And then you have your appendices. If you decide to use the block format, your thesis will have 5 or 6 chapters: your introduction, literature review, methods, results, discussion, and conclusions. Sometimes the discussion and conclusion chapters are combined, but you'll have your results all in one chapter. And the references come at the end of the document, and then you'll put your published or in-press papers in the appendix. So this is what the outline will look like. You'll have your chapter 1, your introduction and background, chapter 2, literature review, chapter 3, methods, your results in chapter 4, discussion, chapter 5, and then your conclusion and recommendations in chapter 6, followed by your references. Now, I have seen some theses that have got 2 literature review chapters. So for example, say you are developing a new measurement instrument and you want to have a separate chapter specifically for the literature around developing of a measurement instrument. I've also seen a thesis where the conclusion and recommendations chapter are split into 2, where the limitations and recommendations form one chapter and then the conclusions formed another chapter. So as long as you're consistent, make your choice, stick to it, and it will be all fine. When using the divided block format, you'll have your introduction chapter, your literature review, your methods chapter, if relevant, and a conclusion chapter. Then your results are in separate discrete chapters, referred to as results chapters, and also what we often call our different studies that make up our PhD. So each results chapter will have a section of introduction, methods, results, and discussion, similar to what is included in a publication. And then the references come at the end of each chapter. Linking statements can be included at the end of the discussion section to introduce the next chapter. And this is a good idea to link the sections together and to improve the flow of the thesis. And it also helps to present the thesis as a coherent whole. There is no rule on the number of studies or results chapters to be included in this format, but it should be more than one, otherwise the block format will be more appropriate. Avoid repetition by briefly introducing the literature which already features in the literature review chapter in the introduction section of each of the results chapters or studies. Also, in the discussion of the results chapter or study, you'll discuss the findings of that specific study in detail, while in the overall conclusion chapter, you will zoom out and discuss the cross-cutting issues and the overall picture, the bird's eye view of the thesis. Then a global methods chapter can be included, which contains methods which are common to each of the individual studies or results chapters. If there are no common methods, then this chapter can be left out, and each of the methods can be discussed in detail within each of the results chapters. Also, when publications form the basis of these results chapters, the methods section of each of them may need to be expanded. As we all know, there is often not a lot of space in a publication to include a detailed description of the methods. So if you prefer to expand on the methods section of each of these results chapters, then a global methods chapter can come in handy. If you are using publication as the basis of your results chapters, you may want to include data into a results chapter that have not been included in the publication. This should be stated clearly at the start of the chapter. The published papers can be added into the appendix. The results sections do not have to contain published papers. It can be papers which are not yet submitted, or a mix of published or unpublished papers. Indicate the status of the paper clearly at the start of each results chapter. In other words, to be submitted, under review, in press, published. Use a consistent format and referencing style throughout the entire document, or format each paper based on the journal guidelines, or you can insert the PDF if the paper is published. Discuss this issue with your supervisor and decide on the best way forward. If a different format for each chapter is going to be used, then state this at the start of each chapter. So the divided block format will look something like this. You'll have your introduction and background chapter, your literature review chapter, your methods, possibly, and then you'll have your different studies. Now remember, the number of studies will be decided when you discuss your project or you conceptualize your project. It doesn't have to be 4. And then you'll have your conclusion and recommendations chapter. In some instances, the conclusions and recommendations chapter are split into a discussion chapter, which is separate, and then a conclusion chapter, or it may be just an expanded conclusion chapter. When using the integrated format, your thesis will be divided into 3 sections. So the first section will contain the introduction and literature review, which include a review of the literature and a synthesis and discussion of all papers included in the thesis and how each paper contributes to answering the research question, as well as how each paper contributes to the overall aim of the thesis. And then you'll have your methodologies used and how it relates to the methods used in other studies, and it synthesizes and discusses the results contained within each paper in the context of the data derived from other studies and the field as a whole. And this can be done in the 3rd section, or if only 2 sections are preferred, it is included in the 1st section. Then you have your references at the end of each section, and then you have your 2nd section, and this contains your published or in-press papers. Then we get to the 3rd section, which is your overall concluding chapter. So it's a synthesis of conclusions or arguments from each paper, recommendations for future research or practical applications, or the overall significance or implications of the thesis. And then there's also the option to only have 2 sections, the 1st and the 2nd, which means the valuable information contained in the 3rd section described here should form part of the 1st section. This is what the structure of the integrated format will look like. You'll have your 3 sections and your different chapters which form part of each section, and there's no rule on how many papers are required, but the students should aim for a minimum of 3 papers, of which at least 2 have been published or are in press, to use this format effectively. If you are including publications that emanated from your PhD into your thesis, then you need to include a letter signed by all co-authors into the appendix. This information or letter should include the role of the PhD student in each of the papers, as well as an agreement from the co-authors to use the paper in the thesis. Now, this is quite easy to do if your only co-authors are your supervisors, but it becomes quite a bit more complex if your co-authors include other PhD students or external collaborators. The PhD student is normally the first author on the papers included into a PhD thesis. If not, a letter to state the contribution of the student and which data within the paper was used for the thesis need to be included. Always make sure that you get copyright permission from a journal to include published or in-press papers into your PhD. You can have a look at the Sherpa website to see what you are allowed to do with your published and in-press papers. I hope this video helped you to decide on the best format for your thesis. Enjoy the last bit of your postgraduate journey. Have fun and go out and change the world.